And there's now rumors that have been circulating that Lil Tim was actually shot in Texas, and some people are happy to hear it.
Who caught that boy? Who stretched that boy? Who caught that boy, man?
Before the headlines, before the whispers, and before last night lit the internet up, Lil Tim was already one of the most talked about names connected to Chicago street drama. His name carried weight, anger, and years of built-up tension long before reports started circulating about what allegedly went down in Texas. This wasn't some sudden moment either. This was pressure stacking up over time, and a lot of people had been watching quietly, waiting for the next move. For years, the streets had their eyes locked on him. Ever since the 2020 incident that changed everything, Tim became a symbol of unfinished business to many people tied to Chicago. Instead of laying low, he leaned into the attention, moving reckless online, stirring reactions, and keeping his name alive in conversations that never cooled off. That energy followed him everywhere, and last night, that same energy reportedly caught up with him. Little Tim, whose real name is Timothy Leaks, comes out of Savannah, Georgia, not Chicago. That part matters. Savannah streets are rough in their own way, and growing up there shaped how Tim moved, how he reacted, and how he handled pressure. From early on, people around him knew he wasn't the type to fold when things got tense.
All the kids in the neighborhood that's Tim's age or under him, all of them looked up to Tim. All, because it's like, none of them could do what Tim was doing. They go out for football, they can't do what Tim do. Track, they can't do what Tim do. Tim smoking everybody on the track. Tim running touchdowns, boy just been an athlete.
Tim just. He built a reputation as someone who stood firm no matter how uncomfortable the situation got. Everything shifted when Tim started running closely with Quando Rondo. Being around Quando meant inheriting his problems, his beefs, and the constant spotlight that came with industry and street conflicts. When you're next to someone surrounded by nonstop tension, you don't get the luxury of peace. Tim understood that and took on the role of protector, always alert, always ready, always moving like trouble could pop off at any second. At that time, Quando was dealing with serious friction tied to the fallout involving NBA YoungBoy and multiple camps aligned against him. Having Tim nearby wasn't accidental. Tim was seen as the one who wouldn't hesitate when things got heated, the one who would step forward if lines were crossed. That loyalty would end up changing the course of his life forever. Everything came to a head on November 6th, 2020, outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta. What should have been a regular night turned into a moment that rewrote multiple futures. That night placed him directly in the middle of a situation involving King Von, a name that already carried serious weight in the city of Chicago. What makes the situation even crazier is that Tim likely didn't fully grasp who he was dealing with in that split second. He didn't see a rap star, a legend, or a figure tied to an entire block. He saw his close associate being confronted, tension rising fast, and made a snap decision based on loyalty and survival. That single decision instantly tied him to one of Chicago's deepest street wounds. From that moment on, Tim became permanently linked to OBlock and everything that name represents. The tension between Tim and people connected to OBlock wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. To many, he became the face of a loss that never healed, and no amount of time was going to make that anger fade quietly.
Well, you pull out and you shoot 4 times. Yeah, the gun down.
The friction didn't start that night, though. The situation was already boiling because the back and forth between King Von and Quando Rondo had been building for months. Subtle jabs turned into open disrespect, and every encounter felt closer to a breaking point. Once that line was crossed, there was no walking it back. King Von wasn't just another rapper in the mix. He was deeply rooted, connected, and respected. Coming up alongside Chief Keef and later aligning closely with Lil Durk, Von carried both industry success and real-world credibility. That combination made his name untouchable to some, but unforgettable to others. And once Tim became tied to that night, there was no such thing as moving unnoticed again. Every move, every post, every appearance added another layer to a story that refused to die down. What started as loyalty in one moment turned into years of tension, pressure, and eyes watching his every step. At the time everything went left, King Von wasn't just making noise. He was bringing real money back to his block. His music was pulling in millions, and that success wasn't just personal, it was shared. He carried the image, the respect, and the reputation that made even the toughest people think twice before stepping out of line. He managed to balance mainstream success while still keeping that raw edge that earned him respect in the streets. So when Tim's actions outside that Atlanta hookah lounge ended Von's run, it wasn't viewed as just another loss. To the people around him, it felt like something sacred was taken away. Von wasn't just a rapper to OBlock. He was their golden name, their financial hope, and their most trusted presence all wrapped into one. That hit landed deep, and the pain wasn't something they were willing to let fade quietly. From that moment forward, the atmosphere changed completely. People connected to OBlock weren't looking for closure. They were looking for answers and accountability. Letting something like that slide wasn't an option, especially not when it involved someone as respected as Von. This wasn't just street tension anymore. This was personal history being rewritten in the worst way. Since then, the focus shifted heavily toward Tim. According to Street Talk, the block made it clear they weren't letting time heal anything. They wanted a response, and they wanted it handled their way. This wasn't about clout or online debates. This was about pride, loyalty, and unfinished business that kept people up at night.
I ain't gonna lie, I don't.
But put it like this, why don't you like Lil Tim? Because do you understand the whole situation or what?
I understand, but it's like, all right, you did what you did, okay.
Because
cool.
I heard, not to cut you off, but I heard a lot of people from y'all side getting that, some people saying he did with like...
But he'll do what any street nigga do if a nigga, he gotta defend his people. But it's like, all right, you did what you did, that's cool, all right, boom, the police was involved, you got off, bro. It ain't like you did some street shit and like, it's just left in the streets. That shit on some police shit too at the same time. You get what I'm saying? Like, niggas will do shit. Like, it's a difference from doing some street shit and the motherfucker know you did some street shit, right? And your name, you in the streets, like, your name ring or whatever. All right, but the police was involved in that shit. But it's like, I don't like the way he go about it. Like, how niggas be flexing and shit. Like, don't act like you did.
Things reached another level in 2022 when several individuals tied to OBlock allegedly made moves trying to track Tim down. Reports later connected names like Muna, Muop, and others to a situation in Atlanta where a stolen vehicle case ended with arrest. Authorities claimed those individuals were allegedly attempting to locate Tim during that time. Whether plans fully materialized or not, the intent alone sent a loud message. That arrest showed just how serious things had become. This wasn't just talk or tough tweets anymore. People were allegedly willing to risk their freedom just for a chance to face Tim directly. Even though those attempts didn't go the way they planned, it proved one thing loud and clear. Nobody involved had let go of that night in Atlanta. But what truly kept the tension alive wasn't just the past moves. It was Tim's behavior afterward. Instead of moving quietly or staying out of sight, Tim did the exact opposite. He leaned into the attention, using music and public appearances to stir emotions. That choice poured gasoline on a situation that was already volatile. Tim started dropping songs that referenced that night in ways people saw as outright disrespectful. Instead of distancing himself, he repeatedly brought it back up, framing it as a victory rather than a tragedy. To many connected to OBlock, that wasn't just crossing a line, it was dancing on it. He wasn't simply explaining himself, he was celebrating the outcome. Lyrics and statements painted a picture of someone unbothered, almost daring anyone to respond. That energy struck a nerve because it felt intentional, calculated, and meant to provoke reactions. At parties, on tracks, and through captions, Tim continued referencing the Atlanta incident, signaling that he wasn't concerned about consequences. To outsiders, it may have looked like confidence, but to those personally affected, it came across as extreme disrespect. The most upsetting part to many was how often Von's name became a punchline in Tim's music. Every mention reopened wounds that never closed. Each reference was seen as a reminder of loss, anger, and unfinished business that still hung heavy in the air. That type of energy doesn't fade on its own. In the streets, moments like that don't get forgotten. They get remembered and replayed. And with every song, every post, and every statement, the tension only grew louder, heavier, and harder to ignore. This nonstop trolling is what really pushed things to a breaking point. There's a huge difference between explaining yourself after a situation and repeatedly reopening wounds that never healed. And that's exactly how people connected to OBlock saw Tim's behavior. Instead of letting time pass, he treated the whole thing like a badge of honor, bringing it up again and again like it was something to be proud of. To those closest to King Von, it felt like he was turning a painful loss into a trophy. Every lyric, every reference, every post was viewed as another deliberate jab. That kind of behavior doesn't just irritate people, it hardens them, and it made the situation way more personal than it already was. People tied to the block were already angry, but this pushed it into another zone. At that point, it wasn't just about what happened in Atlanta anymore. It became about disrespect, memory, and reputation. That's why some were willing to put everything on the line just for a chance to confront Tim face to face. From a survival standpoint, some observers even said Tim's strategy was calculated. By staying visible, loud, and constantly in the public eye, He made it harder for anyone to move quietly around him. Every move he made was being watched by fans, media pages, and the internet at large. That spotlight can act like protection in some ways. But at the same time, that same strategy came with a serious cost. Each post added pressure. Each song added heat. Instead of cooling things down, it poured more attention onto a situation that was already explosive. You can only poke the same wound so many times before it reacts. The streets didn't stay quiet either. Supporters of Von from all over the country were locked in, watching every move Tim made. Anytime he dropped a song or posted something slick, comment sections filled up instantly. People were openly saying they believed his time would eventually run out. And it wasn't just fans talking. Other artists started choosing sides too. In Chicago, neutrality disappeared fast. Lil Durk, who was widely seen as a mentor and big brother figure to Von, didn't stay silent. Instead of saying names directly, he took the subliminal route. Tracks like Pissed Me Off and Backdoor included lines that many listeners immediately connected to Tim and Quando Rondo. Durk never had to spell it out. The message landed exactly where it was supposed to. Across the Chicago rap scene, Tim's name became unwelcome. Artists who normally stayed out of street conflicts made it clear where they stood. That reaction wasn't just loyalty to OBlock, it was loyalty to Von's legacy. He wasn't only respected in one neighborhood, he had love across the entire city. Meanwhile, Tim still had backing from people in Georgia and supporters tied to NBA YoungBoy's camp. To them, this situation wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger clash between regions, crews, and long-standing rivalries. But even that support had limits. Online, the tension felt nonstop. Every caption got dissected. Every lyric was slowed down, replayed, and analyzed. Fans acted like detectives, trying to predict what might happen next. It felt like the entire hip-hop world was watching events unfold in real time. Then late last night, everything shifted again. The streets started buzzing with reports that something finally went down in Texas.
Come to the South, do some dumb shit, get smoked, and next thing you know, everybody looking around. They got all the guns in the South, bro. They do. They laws is different. They do. Shit, Texas got defensive property. You breaking my car, I get to shoot you. That don't exist nowhere else.
Word spread fast that Tim had allegedly been caught off guard and seriously injured. Rumors flew across social media, with people claiming he had been hit multiple times. Some were quick to say this was the moment OBlock finally got their response. Others urged caution, saying the details were still unclear. But one thing was certain, the internet exploded. Pages refreshed nonstop, timelines flooded, and everyone waited for confirmation. After years of tension, music, posts, and public back and forth, the story took a sharp turn. Whether the reports turn out fully accurate or not, that moment showed just how deep this situation had gone. This wasn't just history anymore. It was an active, unfolding chapter that had the whole culture watching closely. The way this story exploded online was straight chaos. It didn't come from a news report or official statement. It started with a single post that looked legit at first glance. Within minutes, that one post turned into hundreds of reposts, screenshots, and breaking style updates. Nobody slowed down to verify anything because the story felt believable enough to run with. At that point, Tim had been rumored to be moving between states, laying low but still popping up unexpectedly. Texas didn't sound far-fetched to anyone watching closely. So when people saw the claim that something went down there, most didn't question it. They just hit repost and kept it moving. Supporters of King Von went absolutely wild. Timelines flooded with Von's music, throwback clips, and captions claiming justice had finally caught up. The narrative took shape fast. People convinced themselves that years of tension had finally reached a conclusion. Some posts went even further, painting dramatic scenes that sounded more like a movie than real life. Different versions of the story started circulating all at once. One person claimed it happened outside a club. Another swore it went down near a gas station. Others said Tim was in critical condition at a hospital somewhere in Texas. The details didn't match, but that didn't slow anything down. To many people, consistency didn't matter because the ending felt satisfying to them. In their minds, OBlock had finally gotten their response, and Tim had finally been caught off guard. The reaction online was intense. Some people posted pictures of Von with captions like "Long live King Von" and "Justice served." Others celebrated openly, acting like the story was already confirmed. Emojis, victory posts, and laughing reactions filled comment sections at an alarming pace. But this is where social media shows its ugly side. The internet loves a story that feels like closure, even if it's built on nothing solid. When emotions are high, people stop asking questions. And in this case, the biggest warning sign was right there. No major outlets were reporting anything. No police statements, no hospital confirmations, no verified sources backing it up. Still, the rumor machine kept spinning faster. Then, just when people thought the story was done, Tim popped back up online. He posted a single emoji, a hat. To people familiar with street culture online, that message was loud without saying a word. It meant the reports were false, the rumors were fiction, and he was still standing. That one post completely flipped the mood. Timelines that were celebrating just minutes earlier went silent. People started deleting posts. Others acted like they never believed it in the first place. That single emoji shut the whole narrative down immediately. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. The entire story traced back to a fake account designed to look official. The page had a convincing profile photo, a believable bio, and just enough street language to fool people. And it worked. That fake post spread faster than any correction ever could. That's how misinformation moves online. People believe what they want to believe, especially when emotions are involved. This situation is a perfect example of how dangerous social media can be when street tension is already high. False stories don't just mislead fans, they can put real people in risky positions. If anyone tied to OBlock had believed the rumor fully, it could have changed how they moved that night. Someone could have dropped their guard thinking the situation was already over. Or worse, someone might have reacted emotionally and gone looking for answers that didn't exist. That's how misinformation turns into real-world consequences. One fake post can spark reactions nobody can take back. In situations like this, lies don't just spread, they escalate things. By the end of the night, one thing became painfully clear. The story everyone wanted to be true wasn't real at all, but the reaction to it showed just how deep the emotions still run. Even a rumor was enough to shake the entire culture for hours. And that alone says a lot about how far this situation has gone. That single hat emoji said everything Tim wanted it to say. No long explanation, no back and forth, just a quiet signal letting the world know he was still standing and still moving how he wanted. It wasn't just a denial of the rumors, it was another calculated jab aimed straight at the people who thought the story was real. The timing made it hit even harder. Tim waited until the rumor had fully taken over timelines, until people were already celebrating, arguing, and emotionally invested. Then he shut it down with one post. That pause wasn't accidental. It felt intentional, like he wanted everyone to sit in that moment before pulling the rug out. Once it became clear the story was fake, the reaction flipped fast. Supporters of King Von went from celebrating to frustrated in minutes. Some people were upset they believed it so easily. Others were angry that they even allowed themselves to feel closure from something unconfirmed. What stood out most was how emotionally tied people are to this situation. This isn't just a story people casually follow anymore. It's something a lot of fans feel personally connected to. That fake report exposed just how deep those emotions still run. For Tim, this moment was just another chapter in a long-running mental battle. For years now, he's been playing the psychological side of this conflict just as hard as anything else. By staying visible, by continuing to reference the past, and by refusing to fade away, he's kept himself front and center in the minds of OBlock. Every post, every song, every public move sends the same message. He's still here, still active, still untouched. That constant reminder forces people to relive the same anger and loss over and over again. From a psychological standpoint, that's heavy pressure. But that approach comes with serious risks. Most people in similar situations choose the opposite route. They disappear, change locations, cut off attention, and try to rebuild quietly. Tim chose visibility instead, and that choice keeps him in the spotlight every single day. The fake news incident showed how badly people want a conclusion to this story. Thousands believed the rumor instantly, not because it was verified, but because emotionally, it felt like an ending they'd been waiting for. That kind of reaction says everything. People aren't just spectators anymore. They feel like they're part of this conflict. Every update feels personal. Every rumor feels like progress or setback. That level of emotional involvement makes everything more intense and more unpredictable. It's almost guaranteed that people connected to OBlock saw those same rumors. Even if they didn't believe them, it served as another reminder that the streets, the fans, and the culture are still watching them closely. The pressure to respond, to act, and to eventually close this chapter hasn't disappeared. And that pressure doesn't just come from within the block. It comes from supporters across the country who see this as unfinished business. The expectations placed on everyone involved only grow as time passes. Despite moving carefully, switching locations, and reportedly keeping protection around him, Tim still carries the same shadow from 2020. Time hasn't erased it, distance hasn't erased it, and visibility has only kept it alive. The reality is, this situation isn't cooling off anytime soon. The tension between Tim and OBlock never found closure. It just evolved into something louder, more public, and more complicated. What makes everything even more dangerous is how open it's all become. Traditionally, situations like this stayed off the internet. Now, they unfold in real time through music, captions, and viral posts. Every public move adds another layer of attention. Each song referencing the past, each caption hinting at disrespect, just keeps the story circulating. The fake rumor didn't create the demand for an ending. It exposed how badly people want one. Fans tied to Von's legacy are still waiting for peace. People connected to the block are still waiting for their moment. And Tim continues moving like time is on his side. But the streets don't forget. Memory doesn't fade just because years pass. Avoiding a situation for a long time doesn't mean it's gone. And that's what makes this entire situation so volatile. The longer it stays unresolved, the more unpredictable it becomes. Everyone involved is walking on pressure that hasn't released yet. One thing is clear, this story isn't finished. And as long as emotions stay this high and the spotlight stays this bright, the risk only keeps growing. At this point, it's clear that whatever comes next won't arrive as another rumor or viral post. When something real finally happens, it won't need fake updates or emojis to convince anyone. The tension surrounding this situation has been building for years, and everyone watching knows it's far from settled. What really says everything is how far people connected to OBlock were willing to go back in 2022. Risking freedom, moving recklessly, and putting everything on the line showed that this wasn't talk or posturing. That level of commitment doesn't disappear overnight. It just waits for the right moment. This whole situation is a perfect example of how one moment can spiral into something uncontrollable. What started as a confrontation outside a hookah lounge turned into a long-running conflict playing out in public view. Music, social media, and online commentary turned private grief into a worldwide spectacle. Tim may have shut down last night's false reports, but that doesn't mean the danger disappeared. If anything, the speed at which people believe the rumor shows just how thick the tension still is. That energy hasn't gone anywhere. The loss of King Von left a massive void. For people closest to him, that space hasn't been filled with peace. It's been filled with frustration and unfinished feelings. And Tim's continued visibility, music, and online presence only keep reopening that wound. Whether Tim truly believes he's untouchable or he's just putting on a strong front for the world, the reality is simple. Conflicts like this rarely fade quietly. Pride, loyalty, and memory don't just disappear because time passes. OBlock isn't built to forget someone they considered family. The love for Von runs too deep for that. And Tim hasn't shown any signs of stepping back or changing how he moves. That combination keeps this situation alive. People have been watching this unfold since 2020. Every year that passes without resolution only adds more pressure. Had emojis, posts, and public appearances don't erase the fact that eyes are still on him. Last night might have been false, but it revealed something important. When the real moment finally comes, the entire hip-hop world will be watching live. Fans, artists, and streets alike will all be locked in. This situation isn't ending with rumors or fake pages. It's going to take something real to close this chapter, and everyone involved knows it. Until then, the tension stays active, the emotions stay raw, and the risk stays high. Tim may be smiling now, but the streets don't forget. Time doesn't erase memory, and pressure doesn't vanish just because nothing has happened yet. Right now, both sides are still standing, and both sides still feel the same way they did years ago. That's what makes this story so dangerous and so unpredictable. And with that said, if you want to stay tapped into stories like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. These situations move fast, and when updates drop, you'll want to hear them first. Check out the next video on your screen right now for more celebrity drama, behind-the-scenes tension, and stories the headlines don't fully explain. We'll catch you in the next one.